Hello and welcome to a new episode of Airport CEO, where we are continuing our work here on replicating Copenhagen Airport. Our main focus today will stay on Terminal 2, just as in the last episode, because that is definitely the first terminal we would like to have up and operational. And more specifically, we will be working on the interior of the terminal around the B gates. As always, before we get too far into today's video, if you should end up enjoying this video, then don't forget to leave a like, and of course, if you are new around here, why not hit subscribe? That would be absolutely awesome. Alright, so the first thing I would like to do in today's episode is actually add a second floor here to part of Terminal 2. This will be above, well, mainly a shopping area, and in the second floor I would then like to place some lounges at a later time. So while I'm figuring out how people should be able to access this second floor in the future, let's talk a little bit about Terminal 2, which is of course the terminal that we are focusing on at the moment, because, well, this is basically the central terminal of Copenhagen Airport and where you would have most narrow-body operations going out of. So Terminal 2 consists of, well, mainly two concourses, Concourse A and Concourse B. Concourse A is like this slightly angled T-shape, but the focus of today's episode will be on Concourse B, which is a fairly straightforward building, given that it is pretty much a straight building, but it does have some interesting angles as well, which we will be exploring today. Now, all traffic at the B concourse is normally handled at level 1, because all the stands along the terminal do have jet bridges. Now, we don't have that option because we are using some small stands as well at the B concourse, and they can't be operated with jet bridges. So for them we need to improvise a little bit. But the main layout of the B concourse is basically that you have a fairly thin corridor going all the way from one end to the other of the concourse. And then alongside this corridor you have all the gates. Now, these gates are, although not completely fenced off, rather secluded to this main corridor, giving it a rather cozy experience or cozy feeling when you're walking through the terminal, at least when it's not overcrowded. So we will also try to build these a little bit secluded waiting areas for each gate and then have this corridor going through our building. But firstly, we need to tackle the issue with our small stands, which we of course need to operate from ground floor level. But I would still like to have passengers stay at level 1 for as long as possible. So the basic idea here is simply that we will have the waiting area on first floor level, but then after they have boarded, so past the boarding desk, they will go down the escalators to ground floor level, where they then will be able to walk out onto the airfield. Now, doing it like this will actually create rather large waiting areas for our small stands and quite a bit smaller waiting areas for our medium stands, which of course isn't quite logical when we look at the game. But when we look at the shape of the building, well, yes, it is a fairly straight building, but you can see like there are these small extensions to one side, and that's basically on the side where we have our small stands. In real life, they don't have small stands at that terminal. They are operating single aisle, narrow body aircraft up to A321s on that side, but I wanted to have some small stands as well, and I couldn't really place the medium stands there and still have like these small extensions to the building. So that's why I placed the small stands. Yes, it does create larger waiting areas for our small stands, but I think it doesn't really matter. In this case, we are really more going for the look rather than the functionality. And there will still be enough waiting areas, or the waiting areas of the medium stands on the other side will still be sufficient to handle the traffic that we are getting there. At least I'm fairly confident that they will. And if they don't, well, then they will create exactly what you see at Copenhagen Airport, at least in non-COVID times, that there are some areas that are just overflowing with passengers that are waiting for their flight, while passengers are trying to pass them going to a different flight, and there just not being enough space for all that happening at once. So one thing I decided for the small stands is that I wanted to operate them with the small boarding desk. One, I wanted to have some manned boarding desks at this part of the terminal, and the other thing is that I think the small boarding desks will be completely sufficient to operate the stands. Obviously with the small aircraft, they don't carry as many passengers, and therefore it shouldn't be any issue to just operate them with these small boarding stands. On the other side, I however have a different plan, because on the right side where we have the medium stand, space is definitely much more at a premium than on the left side with the small stands. Now hopefully things won't be too cramped, but we do need to think about how we are using the space available. So instead of using the manned boarding desks, I'm going to use the automated boarding desks. That has multiple advantages for us. One, they don't take up as much space, and I can place more on the space that I would have available for just one manned boarding desk. That should also improve the time it takes to handle an aircraft at the gate, so that is nice. For the moment, I'm going to place 3 automated boarding desks at each gate, but we could extend that if we would like to, if we need to, if we see that there should be a bottleneck, or if we would like to improve the time it takes to get an aircraft boarded. So despite the fact that, yes, space is at a premium and it might at some points appear a little bit cramped, it should still be quite alright, and there should be enough space to handle the amount of passengers that are going through these gates. The other thing is that we then have like a little space in between each of these waiting areas, and that we can then use for bathrooms and for staff rooms, which we of course need to make sure that we are placing across the entire terminal to fulfill the needs of the passengers with the bathrooms, and to fulfill the needs of the staff with the staff rooms, so they are always staying close to their working stations. So yeah, we are back on the grind of building bathrooms and staff rooms, but yes, it's not the most interesting thing to build, I have to admit that, but you just can't underestimate how important it is to have these rooms across the airport, because it really does change how your airport operates. I mean, the bathrooms, obvious, it makes the passengers happy if they can relieve themselves when they need to. Obviously, you can also have them available for your staff, which also have some needs. The staff rooms are also really important because, well, it's not so much when they are working that they need it, it's more when they're not working. As soon as their shift has ended, they will search for a staff room. If you don't have any, well, they will be quite unhappy. The other thing is, of course, once you have one, let's say you build one central staff room, but quite a few workers will probably have to walk quite a long distance to get to that staff room. Now, that might not be a huge problem when they're ending their shift, but it will be a problem when they're starting their shift, because their shift starts whenever it starts, and it doesn't matter where they are. So they are starting basically their shift while they're still in the staff room. And then they are starting to walk towards their working station. And if that now is far away, well, it takes them a long time to get to that working station. And that could be, for example, a gate. And that means the gate won't be operational until the staff member has arrived, which will cause a delay to your aircraft, which then again will affect the rating of your passengers and the rating of the airline, which then affects the ability of signing new and better contracts with other airlines. So yeah, staff rooms, even though maybe not the most interesting part of the game, are very important. But before I get to sound like a preacher, let's just take a break on the staff rooms, because we have plenty of other tasks we also need to handle. One of them being trying to fulfill the needs of the passengers. And along Concourse B, we will do that with the help of vending machines. Now, we don't really have space for adding shops, cafes, or restaurants here at the Beacon Course, but obviously passengers do occasionally want to purchase something or have a drink or something to eat. So we will try to fulfill those needs with vending machines here. And then there will be plenty of other areas throughout the terminal building where they then have proper shops. There might also be a little bit of space left at the far end of the Beacon Course where we can squeeze in a shop of some sorts, but we will see how that goes. Yes, we could also take some of these waiting areas for the small stands and make them smaller and then add a shop in there. But in real life, they also don't have any shops at the beacon cores, but also just vending machines. So that's why we will be doing it like this here as well. So while we are continuing our work here on the interior of the beacon cores, let's quickly talk a little bit about what is going to happen in the near future here of the series, because obviously the main goal right now is to get a part of the airport ready so we can start operating aircraft so they can start coming in and out. And beacon cores is definitely, well, the first part that we will be opening up, that's for sure. And I already know that in the next episode, because I've already recorded it, we will be working on the luggage system. So as soon as we've done that, the airport should actually be ready for a first test run. Now, obviously, the first airline that I will be signing is Scandinavian Airlines, because Copenhagen Airport is the main hub of Scandinavian Airlines. But there are, of course, also many other airlines operating to the airport. So I would say actually from now on it is quite appropriate for you to start suggesting airlines if you would like to. Obviously you can suggest whatever you would like to, but the more realistic your suggestion is, the more likely it is that I will actually do it. So you can suggest Southwest Airlines, but the likelihood that I will actually sign Southwest Airlines is probably quite small. Of course, also do keep in mind that there needs to be a mod for whatever airline you are suggesting, because otherwise it's impossible for me to add it. But obviously it is a game, so we do also have some creative freedom here. It doesn't need to be 100% correct. So for example, a European airline that maybe doesn't fly to Copenhagen in real life could still be added here, because it could theoretically be flying to Copenhagen. But anyway, if you have an airline in mind that you would very much like to see here at the airport, from now on you can let me know in the comments section below, and I will start to take a look at those and note them down so that we can try to add them throughout the series. Now, while I continue my work here of shining up the beacon cores of Terminal 2 so that it, well, is ready for passengers, I think we are getting towards the end of today's episode. As always, if you have enjoyed the video, then don't forget to leave a like. That would be very much appreciated. And of course, if you are new around here, why not hit subscribe? That would be absolutely awesome. And as always, if you have any feedback, any suggestions, then you're always welcome to let me know in the comments section below. Now with that, I'd like to say thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you soon again. I'm checking out, and bye.